All right, welcome back to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm here with Matt and Jeff again. I have a couple topics on the docket. Today, we actually tweeted out our link, so we're trying to get people to tune in, so make sure you share that if you see it. Our last problem that we're trying to take care of is the audio sync, so that's something that's going to have to just come with time. So I usually fix it when we repost a video on YouTube. So if you're watching live, you might have to bear with the audio, but that should be figured out here soon. And other than that, I think we're looking good, and we have another good show for you guys this week. It is the summer season, getting ready. I think there's 68 days until we get some Steeler football back on the docket, and with that comes some summer camps, some 7-on-7s. Matt, I know you've been doing some 7-on-7 stuff. You want to go ahead and kick it off with a little bit about that?
Yeah, 7-on-7 season to me is a double-edged sword because on one hand, you see a lot of teams that they don't really run their true offense. They take, maybe they're a power high school, maybe they're a team that single wing predominantly runs a football, in which you'll see they'll go to 7-on-7 and then they have a special playbook where they're going 5 wide and 3x1, 2x2, and they're doing all these different spread things to try to be competitive. I hate when teams do that because I think you're really not taking full advantage of the opportunity that you have to work your system. If I feel like if you have a good system in place, regardless if it's 7-on-7, if it's full pad during camp, it should be something that's viable and works, and fits with what you're planning on doing in the season. And if you can do that, then you end up with a better quality team that you don't have to work on installing as much come camp.
Yeah, it's very interesting. One thing about 7-on-7, you get first glimpse of your athletes start off the year, but sometimes it's kind of like a false identity of some of the players. But until you put the pads on, you start tackling. The physical players don't really shine in 7-on-7, so it's kind of weird. I think it's a good thing, get the kids out, coach, get to essentially coach up some of the players, but it's sometimes I noticed from my experiences, some of the kids who shine in 7-on-7, when you put the pads on, they just disappear, honestly. So it's good to get the kids all together and start getting some of that team chemistry, but I don't necessarily know how much it exactly translates when you put the pads on and you start tackling and everything like that.
Well, with summer camp, a lot of high school teams really focus on the run. So, Matt, what do you think about using this for a recruiting tool, just to show off some of the routes? You talked about putting in different offensive packages. How much of that do you think is just to help athletes get recruited?
I think it can help, especially if you have, I know one of the highlights that stood out was the Louisville quarterback. When he was in some of that 7-on-7 stuff, Lamar Jackson, some of his film of some spring or summer ball is just unbelievable with the moves that he was able to make in the open field. One of the things that I've never actually coached in a 7-on-7 tournament like this, but I know some of them now are giving the opportunity to put a running play out there. So for some of those plays, you may be able to run a trap play or a dive play. Obviously you're not going to be able to block, but to run a toss or something to keep the linebackers from completely just running out on the play, it makes them hold the line a little bit better. I think that makes things just a little bit more competitive. It's still, the two-hand touch or touch, rules, but to give that option of one down, you're able to run the ball if you want. I think that makes it a lot more competitive and making teams hold, their read responsibilities because they have to respect the run versus trying to be in 7-on-7 where a lot of teams just run as soon as the ball snapped out of the box. It doesn't give you a realistic look at how teams are going to cover you when the season rolls around.
Yeah, just to go off your point a little bit, I might be contradicting myself a little bit. What I just said previously about I don't know how much it prepares the teams and stuff like that. But when you look at recruiting at major universities, sometimes that's the first glimpse at an athlete. Is they have their own camps. High school kids come in their sophomore, junior year. Honestly, I think it's kind of a death sentence for some athletes as they wait till their senior, going into their senior year to start going to some of these camps and stuff like that. if you don't go to camps as like a sophomore or junior, get your film out there, start, getting people, getting on the radar of major universities, you're really going to get passed over. So while I said it's bad, 7-on-7, I don't know how much it helps teams on necessarily when you consider tackling and putting the pads on and stuff like that. It is a major tool though for like the individual. So 7-on-7, like when you have those kind of camps and stuff like that, it gives essentially different athletes the ability to showcase their talents for major universities, whether they go to their camp or, college recruiters start going out to some of the local high school 7-on-7 leagues and stuff like that.
Yeah, those are some good points. And that's why, I didn't know if you're looking at limited film from just a game, a guy might only have 15, 20 throws throughout the season. I think one of the guys, our own Ben Roethlisberger, that was the knock on him. I don't think he passed a lot in high school. He didn't have a lot of big-time offers. He ended up going to Miami of Ohio. And there, he really came into his own. It wasn't lack of size or anything in high school. If you go back and look at that film, you can see he had a lot of the technique that he has now with the Steelers. It was just he wasn't out there. They didn't have as many 7-on-7s however many years ago he was in high school, or they just didn't. His offense focused on the run. You don't have that film, so I didn't know how much you guys thought that hurt recruiting or whatever.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the other things when you're looking at recruiting is sometimes kids don't have, I think it's pride gets in the way that you start thinking, I'm Division I prospect, so I'm only going to look at Division I schools, and they end up missing the mark. I think sometimes if you go in with the mindset of, let's just get a offer to some school, it doesn't matter which school, just get a full scholarship, because the academic part of that's going to carry much more than the athletic part of it. Eventually, after those 4 years, most athletes aren't going on to the pro level. So looking at, sometimes going to a smaller school camp, like at a Division II school, that's going to be able to offer a scholarship, and working out at those camps can put a kid at a good advantage, because now, say you have an offer in place from a lower school, you go to some of these bigger schools, you can say, yes, I already have an offer from this school or that school, and it makes you look more appealing as opposed to, well, I'm just going to these camps and trying to find, it's like trying to find a date. No one's going to ask you if you don't already have a date.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. And like looking at like my personal experience with college recruiting, you have to have a couple schools that are interested in you. Whether it's an offer on the table, it's just one big game. It's essentially, it's a bargaining chip, is what it is. You might get a Division II offer, you might have a couple Division III offers, but you have to have some offers, and you have to let them, those coaches that, let's say hypothetically you want to go to Alabama or something like, Pitt, Penn State, one of the bigger schools. You have to show them that there's multiple schools interested in you. Whether that is saying, I got a preferred walk-on from this school, I have multiple scholarship offers from Division II and III. If you don't let them know, like essentially right up front, you're going to get overlooked. They're going to. It's weird. It's like essentially with recruiting, they do their first round recruits and then their second and thirds. Like what is it? Like the 5-star recruits and stuff. Like the rivals and different things have. They have the rankings. They go after the top tier kids first, and then they go from there. So if you're not a top tier kid, you have to make sure that the coaches know that people are interested in you, or you're just going to get overlooked. And honestly, the recruiting process starts your sophomore, junior year of high school. Like if you don't start then with film, going to different Nike has the Spartan Combine, I believe it is, stuff like that. If you don't get your name out there, you're going to get overlooked. And it's so cliche too. I know personally a lot of friends and different athletes in the area I grew up got overlooked by a lot of universities because of their grades. If you don't have you don't have good grades, you're going to get overlooked. If you can't pass the NCAA clearinghouse too, you're going to get overlooked. So the first thing you need to do is make sure your academic standing is all right, and then you start with film, going to camps, different things like that. But yeah, if you don't have your grades either, schools are going to overlook you. There's no way they're going to bring in a kid who they think is going to be academically eligible. That's just bottom line.
Those are some good points, and it made me think. I think it's going to get even harder now with the way social media is. everyone can put out their tape. There's just not enough time to sit and watch all the tape. I don't know if you guys have heard, but one of the big, I would consider one of the big three, you mentioned Rivals, but Scout, the old website, they have a lot of forums and stuff on teams. They actually just got bought by CBS, who runs 24/7 sports or 24/7 recruiting. And for 24/7, they really have their own, but their big claim to fame is they take a composite of Rivals, of Scout, and then of some of their own evaluation to kind of rescale some of these athletes. And if they're taking over Scout, I would imagine that one kind of goes away or gets tied into their own system. So instead of having 3 separate recruiting services you could get noticed by, you're basically down to 2. I mean, I really don't count ESPN because I think it's pretty much a copycat thing. Once someone's name's out there, they'll go ahead. And if you don't get invited to the camps, like ESPN's only going to invite the big name kids that are already out there. That it only takes one. Like you said, it only takes one offer from a school. It doesn't have to be a big school. If Kansas State offers a guy, you better believe that the other big dogs, Alabama, Michigan, Ohio State, USC, they're going to take a look at that guy. And if one of them offers, then you never know. It might come back. Then another bunch of schools jump in. What I usually see is like if an Alabama offers a 3-star guy, he usually gets a star bump, and the next day he has 15 new offers. So it only takes one, like you said, and with these recruiting services kind of just consolidating, it's going to be tougher to eliminate. I think of college basketball recruiting where it's driven by shoe companies. If you go to their camps and play on their sponsored AAU teams, you're going to get more exposure because you're part of their team. And then you see schools getting into bidding wars over like who's on whose team. And before with football, just because of the nature of the beast, you didn't have that. But if you lose these independent recruiting companies, you're going to start to see that over time. And it's just going to hurt the kids that go to smaller high schools and things like that.
And that's one thing, too, to go off of that. When you go to small schools like that, it's really easy to overlook. You know, if you don't have the grades, you go to a small school. And I like what you brought up there with the social media thing. There's going to be such an influx of videos and highlight, films on the internet now. It's going to be so many hours. Like, they're essentially just going to, universities put up, I don't know if they have it already or not, just like a sole guy that all he does is just watch film all day. You know what I mean? To try to evaluate players, find the best players possible. But I'm not sure, I can't really remember the name of it, but when I was in high school too, there was like 1 or 2 different websites that tried to essentially market do my own marketing, try to get my film out there. Like they have paid services. I wonder, I haven't really looked into it in a long time, but I'm very curious to see if there's other companies like that now that, if you pay
them, they are everywhere. They are everywhere. And a lot of them are very scam oriented. Because they'll say, "Oh yeah, we'll send your film out to X number of places." I mean, they say, they almost act like a middleman, where they'll say, "Oh yeah, we're in contact with these schools." It doesn't guarantee that you're going to end up with a scholarship, and a lot of times, are these take the secondhand advice from one of these people that may or may not be reputable. I'd seen some different things, and one of the ones was they're trying to have these scam big combines and saying, "Well, I'll pull a coach from Ohio State, or I'll pull a coach from like a bigger school." Well, if you're a quarterback prospect and the coach that's running that is a defensive line coach, what impression can you make if he's going to be like primarily looking for defensive line prospects out of that camp? You're going to go under the radar or unnoticed at those camps. I think you're better off spending that extra money if you're going to do that. Go to camps, physically be there so that you can make a connection with a coach, let them see your work ethic, and then if you want to spend the extra money, spend it on speed training, because everyone wants to know what's your 40 time, what's your bench, what are those different ratings that they're going to evaluate you on, and try to get those numbers as high as possible. You look at some of these film things too, and what kids have to realize is when they turn the film on, you only have a couple clips because you're evaluating so many. So if you don't jump right off the page, a lot of time they're just going to move it. They're going to move right along to the next person, because when you look at those top 300 kids, when ESPN shows those clips, it's like instantly they don't have to highlight who that player is. They run the highlight, like, oh, that's the guy they're talking about, the one that's like jumper everyone to make a touchdown or have the tackle or sack. It's like it's visible that that's the athlete you're looking at.
Yeah. That's very interesting that you brought that up, because I actually, like, when I went through my recruiting process and everything, I actually believe I made my highlight film too long. I wish I would know now, back then, like what I know now, I wish I would have known back then, because, no one's going to watch a 10-minute highlight film. That's just bottom line. You're like you said, you're going to watch for a couple plays, you're like, all right, does this guy, jump out of the, off the page, or, you turn it on, you essentially know exactly who that player is. So if that's another tip I'll tell the kids, keep it short. 3 minutes, unfortunately, is probably all you're going to get when it comes to looking at a highlight film, honestly.
And your best highlights. So you don't want to save, your best highlight for the 10th minute or the 9th minute, because just like what you said, it's going to leave you far behind. Your best bet is, if you got top highlights, play them right off the bat and let them get it. And don't worry what track you're spinning them to, because most of the time, a lot of times, they put it on mute anyhow. They don't want any distraction from the evaluation. So they're just going to watch, what are you doing on film?
Mm-hmm. And another thing, too, my mentality when I made my highlight film was show the body of work. But I don't think that necessarily is a good idea, because it's like we were just talking about. People are going to watch 3 minutes, you know what I mean? So I think my highlight film was 8 to 10 minutes, somewhere in that ballpark. Honestly, that was just a waste of time for me, because they're not going to watch that entire film.
Yeah, and one thing that I want to add too is I see a lot, because you get some highlight films that are passed around. Don't show the same play over and over in slow motion, because what you're doing is you're just wasting the time. If I have to watch 3 plays and each one you show it in real time, then you show it in slow motion, and then you show it in a zoomed in slow motion, that's not really showing me a bunch of highlights. Instead of showing maybe your top 15 plays, you're taking time away to keep showing the same one. It's going to look like you don't have that many highlights to show. Or then, like Jeff said, you're going to get into a case where your highlight video is 10, 15 minutes long. And realistically, if it's that long, they're going to be putting them on 2 or 3 videos on at the same time and kind of watching back and forth. And you're not going to get the attention that you probably deserve.
Yeah, that's one thing when I made my highlight film, I didn't put any plays in slow-mo. I always thought that was silly. At the end of the day, they're going to want to watch real time. They want to see your speed compared to everyone else. Putting it in slow-mo doesn't necessarily show your speed or quickness. I think that actually eliminates it, honestly.
Yeah, and I want to say that if you do, because I made some highlight videos for my brother, and he was able to get a full ride, to put it against the best competition. Because what you want to do is, if you play high school and you also play AAU, figure out which one's better and only show highlights from them. Maybe you're in a state championship game. Maybe you're in a district championship game and you're playing a tougher team and you have a bunch of highlights. You drove your team and you won that championship. Versus if you're playing AAU against even some scrubs, or likewise a regular high school game against a smaller school, and you guys decimate them by 60, 70 points. Those aren't the highlights they want to see. They want to see you going against the best competition, because that's what's going to make them jump out. Or they're going to say, look, he looks like a man among boys out there, probably just another flub, and they're going to try to get you on campus. And it's tough to make it to every camp to show in every school, and then you have to show your best on camp. So put your best on film, because then you might be able to get some individual attention on campus from schools, instead of just getting a generic invite to a larger camp.
Yeah, the one thing too, I'm not really sure how common this is, but I remember my one friend, when he got recruited, they actually put him through a workout when he actually visited at the university. I don't know how common it is. I've never experienced that with any of the schools I visited. But I don't know if that was just maybe what that school usually does. You know what I mean? That's just a common practice of them. If they have a person they really are interested in, they'll put them through a workout in the weight room, see what they can do and stuff like that. But I don't know. I just thought that'd be something to bring up sometimes, like depending on the situation, you might be able to get a workout or something along with game film. I'm not sure if this is common practice either, but like when I put my highlight film out, I sent my highlight and then also 2 full games, my best 2 games that I played. I don't know, Matt, if you can elaborate on that a little bit.
I think that's beneficial. I don't think you have to do that, but in the age where we have access to Huddle now, I think that's really changed the face of a lot of things, where you can create a highlight film and using your like Twitter bio, you can add a link to your Huddle film so that, you know, if you have, you know, and one of the things that I've seen different people put on there, don't use some make name, like, you know, some pretend name like greatest ever, or fastest, whatever. Like, use your actual name so that if they are, like, if a college is searching for you, they can find, you know, your height, your weight, your GPA. They have to wonder or contact the school and waste time with this information. Be honest and put your honest information on there if you're a serious athlete, so that when they look, they can find you. They have the access that they need. That, you know, coaches talk, you know, going to different clinics and different things that, you know, as they're looking for people, there's a chance that your name could be passed along. And if you have that information ready, you know, someone could be looking at your information and getting that information without having to go to a coach or go to someone else. They can just pull it up and look at it themselves if it's organized and put together right.
Yeah. Well, another thing I think we should mention is your relationship with your high school coach is very important in the recruiting process. Because if you have a bad attitude, you know, a showboater or this or that, you know, and the coach, you know, even though you're, you know, a phenomenal athlete, great player, whatnot, if you don't have a good relationship with your head coach, that can really be detrimental to your recruiting process too. I hate that, you know, I mean, you don't want to think that it would make a difference, but it really does. Because at the end of the day, the coach is going to, you know, ask your high school coach, you know, what type of a person is he? What kind of work ethic does he have? You know, how's he doing in school? Blah, blah, blah. You know, I mean, all those kind of things. And if you don't have a good personal relationship with your coach, that can really hurt you in the long run.
I agree with that, because if you think about it, the coach is going to ask the other coach, because they're kind of like from the same industry. If you think of like coworkers or like someone doing like professional networking, it's beneficial to both coaches, because it's easier, just because of the way athletes move through high schools, for the coach to become friends with the other coach. So the college coaches are going to become friends with all these high school coaches because they're able to just text them, hey, anyone I should be looking out for? And they're going to use that. They're going to have a direct texting or phone call relationship with high school coaches. Go to any game, all-star game, and you'll see it. You'll see the scouts, or you'll see other college coaches talking to who? They're not talking to the players. They're talking to the coaches in the stands. So that is probably the most important, other than like good family or friends, because they will reach out to friends too, just to kind of do a judge of character on you.
Yeah. And also to add to that, I think it's important to, you know, have that, you know, good relationship with your coach, because sometimes depending on what school you go to, it really hurts some kids that go to smaller schools. If your coach isn't, you know, historically a good coach, good person, you know, that also makes a factor too. Like you said, if you have a good relationship with these college coaches, you're able just to shoot them a text or a call. That's really going to, you know, benefit you, benefit other players on the team, benefit maybe a player that comes 5 years after you. So, like, the head coach is a really important figure, like you said.
And I think it's beneficial as well from the coaching standpoint. You want to give an honest evaluation to these colleges, because guys are getting fired at the college level by taking poor information from a high school coach. For a high school coach to say, "Oh yeah, take this kid. He's a high quality kid. He's a good kid. You won't have any issues with him." Which is where they get on campus, and then if they're ineligible, if there are discipline problems, if they're having attitude issues and not buying in, you know, that can be the kind of player that could ruin a program, and it could cost a coach's job. So it's in the high school coach's interest to provide the college coach with good information, because then down the line, they may be more willing to take a player. Is this a kind of kid that we can take? Is he the type of athlete we need? They may take the coach's advice if he's provided good information in the past.
Yeah, and also if you think about it just from a business aspect, when you're a head coach of a high school, there's really no way for you to move up or get a promotion unless you get hired at the college level or the professional level. So it's kind of like a working relationship where, hey, if I'm giving this guy good football advice, maybe he'll bring me on as an assistant coach, or likewise something else happens out. So you'll see that a lot of big time college programs offering college or high school coaches that are providing and training these 5-star, 4-star athletes over and over, especially at some of the bigger like recruiting type high schools where it's like a composite of like the best. I think of like IMG Academy in Florida, where they're pulling high schoolers from all over to come because they know they're going to get exposure there. So that's another reason why too, because the coaches are going to be looking at it from their perspective. It benefits them overall, even if it's just trading some tips. Maybe they get a few plays from a college coach or whatever. They're going to be talking to each other. That's a given.
Yeah. This is one thing that's kind of weird to think about too with technology nowadays. A coach that's, an older coach who's not familiar with social media or doesn't, is not very tech savvy, that can really hurt our players now getting recruited as well. Because if he doesn't have social media, doesn't know how to use the internet, like someone in their early 20s and 30s would, he could drop the ball for you, honestly.
Well, that's where you have to look at too, your assistant coaches. Don't overlook them, especially if they are younger and tech savvy. It might actually be them who are texting these college coaches or whoever, some of these, even in like a basketball, like an AAU or like some football camp, some of the all-star committees. It might be the younger assistant coaches, and those are the ones that most athletes put their guard down for. They'll go ahead and they'll slack off around some of the assistant coaches thinking, hey, he's my buddy, whatever, he sees me do this or whatever, when, yeah, if you have an older head coach, they might not be in on that. But the college coaches are probably going to be talking about you for trying to get recruited. Who are they going to text? They're going to text one of your coaches no matter what. So make sure you're professional on your game around everyone on the staff because you want to leave a good impression.
Well, not just that, but also you want to be watching the things that you're putting online, regardless of what social media you're involved with. If you're having, access to social media, it's easy for people to look at it and see, what are you posting? What are the things that, you're liking or you're retweeting or different, whatever it is that whatever media you're on. If your posts that are showing, racial issues or abuse to women or, whatever those negative society issues that are throwing up red flags of, common decent behavior, if it throws up a red flag, they're going to walk away from you and move on to the next person. So it's in your best interest to be mindful of the person that you're becoming as well, and not posting things online that are going to end up getting you in trouble or fired. And it's not just for recruiting; it's for just general job employees. It's smart to watch you're putting online.
Yeah, because sometimes your social media accounts really reflect what type of person you are. Just adding to what you're saying, like, if you want a job in the future, different things like that, social relationships, like when you're 15 years old, you have to be very, very smart of what you put online because it stays there forever. So I think that's really important for young kids. Like, I know, like, when I was essentially in high school, maybe middle school when like Facebook blew up and stuff like that, when it became like the new hip, trendy thing to use. I know, like, personally, I'd probably put some stuff on the internet that I'm not proud of or, stuff like that. Because, like, when you're 16 years old, honestly, like, you're not an adult yet. You don't know any better. Like something you put on there just might be a joke or a gag with some of your friends, but someone, like, an outsider looking in doesn't realize that was a joke. It could really hurt you, years down the road. So it's important kids these days, very mindful of what they are putting online.
Yeah, and don't think a private account will hide you, especially if anyone can make a fake account. And I know that is a thing that college coaches, or even like they'll have an assistant go ahead and just try to become friends with whoever. Might be a friend of yours, might be a girlfriend. You have a private profile. They'll find out. Trust me. So it's better just to go ahead. And like I said, if you're trying to do this, think of your career down the line. Most people don't play professional sports. So if you're using this as an opportunity to get help to pay for school, take advantage of it. Don't do anything that could jeopardize that. Be on your best behavior and do something that can help you be successful throughout your life, not just to hurry up and get into college. You have to keep that going just to have a successful career outside of sports as well as in sports.
That's a big thing right there. You know, a lot of people kind of forget about it, but most people don't make the NFL, they don't make the NBA, they don't make the MLB. So getting a college scholarship is a great way to advance your career years down the line. So that's why I was like talking about earlier, those websites that you could pay for. Sometimes, you know, $102 investment essentially is not a bad investment considering how expensive it is to go to college these days. Say you spend $200 on a website, they get your film out there, you end up getting a scholarship to a Division I school. That's essentially like $120,000 you're saving. Because most schools these days are at least $30K a year. So that's $200 can go a long way. That's a nice little investment.
Yeah, and it doesn't even have to be Division I. You can still get a full ride at some of the lower divisions as long as you love playing the sport, just to help you pay your way through. So don't give up if you don't think that you're that good. If you really want to do it, and you have to want to do it, because once you get there, if that's the way you're paying, if you quit paying the sport, they're going to quit paying you to be there. Basically, what I'm trying to say before I get all my words jumbled up. But do you guys have any closing thoughts on this before we move on, Jeff?
I think just closing, like you just brought up, you know, going to school, getting it paid for is great, but you do got to realize when you play a college sport, it is a full-time job. You put in so many hours, whether it's film, studying, lifting, like it is a full-time job. So before you think it's going to be a cakewalk to get that scholarship, like you have to put in the time and effort between, you know, practice, traveling for games, all that kind of stuff. Like it's very, very demanding. So I think that's just a good place to close. Like if you want to play college sports, like just know that it's going to be a full-time job with, you know, your academics as well.
Matt, you have anything?
I think you guys pretty much covered it all. I mean, within the conversation so far, is just being willing to do the things that are going to separate you from everyone else. I think when you go with the mindset of everyone plays their games, everyone goes to the practices, but what are you doing when no one's around? How are you preparing yourself during the off-season times, the times where maybe other people are taking breaks, or what are you doing to improve yourself or to yourself from the other people that are out there? And if you're able to do that, then you put yourself in a much better position to catch someone's attention and maybe get that scholarship offer.
Yep. All right. Well, today, as we're streaming this, it's going to be what is the 4th of July. So you might be hearing this later. But Independence Day, trying to get away a little bit outside of sports. I'll just say that I hate the store like fireworks they sell these days. I remember being a kid, your parents would put off a huge full-on fireworks display in your backyard. But as a parent now, I go out to get fireworks and I set them off, and you can basically stand 3 feet away, and that's how far these shoot up. It's like a foot high. It's not very patriotic at all. I don't know. I don't know if you guys put off your own fireworks, but I was doing that right before we started the show. And I will have to say, same price, still expensive, but what you get, not bang for your buck. Very, very small fireworks. But carrying on to that theme, the Major League Baseball, I went ahead to sit down and watch Pirates play today. They played the Phillies. Of course, I hate the Phillies. So I'm watching the game, and I knew that they were doing this, but for some reason it slipped my mind. I turn on the game, and I'm like, are the Pirates actually playing? Because their uniforms are red. They're playing the Phillies. Their uniforms are red. So I'm a little confused on what's happening here. And they're rolling out. I'm going to go ahead and bring it up here. 4th of July or Independence Day uniforms. Every team in Major League Baseball is wearing some variation of red, white, and blue. And I might be in the minority here, but I'll just say that I hate this. I don't think, I mean, I know why they're doing it. They want people to go ahead and buy their patriotic team gear because they'll say, oh, well, I like red, white, and blue. If I buy this Pirates hat, I can wear it on Independence Day or the 4th of July or whatever. But they're going ahead and they're selling these. And to me, I would like them to be a little bit more team-oriented, where like the Orioles, I can only show a little bit of the image. I'll go ahead and tweet this out after the show so you can see the full image put out by Major League Baseball. But like the Orioles, they're orange and black. Add a flag to it, do something else, but keep the team integrity there. Because to me, this is just tacky. Like they're reaching for a quick buck. And I mean, I don't like it. Like I hate seeing the Pirates play in that Phillies red. And it was basically their number. So they wore like a gray and their numbers were red from basically what I could see on TV. And then I have to watch them. Luckily the Pirates won, but I don't want to be confused on, all right, who's on the mound here? Who's at the plate? I have to kind of squint because the red and the gray kind of look close whenever you're watching on TV, but I don't like it. This time I'll start off with you, Jeff. What do you think about this? And it's a trend, basically.
I'm actually against you in some respect because I think it's kind of cool, it's the 4th of July, being patriotic. But one thing I do hate about it that you brought up is Major League Baseball only did this to make a quick buck. Like, there was no, true, patriotism behind this. They were just like, okay, I know tons of people are going to buy this because it's red, white, and blue. Like, this is the 4th of July, America, they're just going to buy it. So I hate the fact that the MLB just wanted to make money. But I think it is kind of cool, it's the 4th of July, all decked out red, white, and blue. I don't know if you agree with me, Matt or Richie here.
Go ahead, Matt. We'll get your thoughts first.
Well, they've been doing this for a couple of years now, haven't they? Because I feel like I've seen this before where they've done the patriotic colors. I'm okay with it. I don't think it, but that's also because I don't watch baseball a whole lot, so I don't really have to deal with it as much. If they want to turn a quick buck, it is a business. So if you're smart enough to put it out there and people are willing to buy the product, why not do it? If I knew that we were able to put out some patriotic gear through Southbound Sports and people were definitely going to buy it, I would definitely put it up there so that they could represent on the 4th of July. To me, it doesn't matter. As long as it doesn't take away from the game, it's not an extra distraction, go for it. Knock yourself out. I don't think that it really affects them one way or another.
I would just like to see some team identity, because when you're looking at sports, team colors are a big part of it. I know, you think of, the retro Pittsburgh Steelers Bumblebee uniforms or whatever. Some of the throwbacks and some of the other ones I've seen, I've never seen this extreme where they take the entire team identity off it. I've seen some other ones where they kind of do a blackout, or they had, I could be wrong because it might have changed. You miss one day. It looked like what they did was they put out a whole schedule for holidays. So each holiday had a theme. They had their pink unis, basically copying off NFL. They started this. I think they were the ones that actually did start this trend where they tried to sell some extra gear. They went for the pink gear, not really to support, breast cancer, I think. Because if you look at the numbers, and just isn't me talking, but I think only a very small percentage, maybe 10%, actually went to breast cancer research. So you can't tell me that they did it for that reason. They did it because they wanted females to see, hey, there's a pink jersey, I'm going to buy the pink jersey. That's 100% why they did it, unless they were given 100% of the proceeds or even 50%. No, it should be 100. There's no other argument around it if you're going to promote it as that. And so here, I don't know how far this has gone down, because if I miss a day, I'd imagine they might have did something similar to Memorial Day. And I'm all for it. Put some American flags on the sleeves like they did here, but keep the colors. I know they want to do it. I know they do it for St. Patrick's Day in hockey. They all wear the green jerseys or whatever. I understand what they're doing, but maybe sell it. If you want to sell a red, white, and blue jersey, just go ahead and do it. But have the players wear it. To me, it's just confusing. They already have poor viewership. especially on TV or whatever. Like, have the team identity. I don't know. It could just be me. Like, there's nothing stopping a team from going ahead and selling 100 alternative jerseys. But whenever you're trying to promote your league, like if I'm going to go ahead and turn on a game and then it's confusing to watch, you turn your head for a little bit and then you can't find out who's at the plate or whatever. But I don't know. That's just what I saw today. Kind of annoyed me. Probably on the lesser scale of things. Moving on, the other thing that I had was the Pacquiao fight. I'll go ahead and bring this up because we talked about this. This will probably be our last topic for the day. So Pacquiao fought Horn. Was it ever this past weekend? I think so. Now, there's been some debate, and I've read some outsider information. Basically, I felt like Horn should have won. I didn't watch the whole fight. I watched an abbreviated version that I think was trying to show Pacquiao in the best light. He landed more punches. So for the audio-only listeners, before I begin, I threw up some stats here. Basically, I'll read it. It says Pacquiao connected on 182 of his 573 punches, which basically equals 32% of the punches thrown connected. Horn connected on 92 out of 625 punches for only 15%. So Horn got the decision. It was unanimous. I did see, and based on what I saw, kind of like the condensed fight, which, they have to cut some of it out, so I didn't really see all of it. But what I saw, it should never, one of the guys scored it, I think 117 to 111. Never should have been that. 115 to 13, I could even see a split decision for a unanimous decision. But basically what it came down to was Horn was on the offensive. Pacquiao was picking punches. When a guy's just throwing wild punches and he's actually trying to be on the offensive, yeah, he's going to get hit with some punches. Was he really phased? Not from what I saw. So the people basically arguing from Pacquiao's perspective are saying, judge it based on technical skill. Judge it based on how many punches hit and how many are thrown. But in reality, I think that's what has hurt boxing over the years. I've paid for many a fight that has been boring. I've paid for fights that were over in like 15 seconds. That you're like, I've just paid for that fight. So, and I've seen other ones. I know they always throw it. There was like a huge fight in the 90s where it was two heavyweights. They were going back and forth. The name's escaping me now, but it was one of the most brutal fights that I've ever seen. Like, that's what I expect. I want to see people actually punching each other. And this fight, I think, is just kind of what it reminded me of a Mayweather fight. From what I saw, Pacquiao kind of being on the defensive. I know that's not even his MO. I think it's his age. To be honest, like, when you start to get into fights like this, it's over. I try to, like, basically what I'll compare this to is when Mike Tyson, he lost to there's an Irish guy. I can't remember his name right now, but I remember we bought the fight, and halfway through the fight, I thought to myself, Tyson's going to lose this fight. He deserves to lose this fight. If he wins, it's basically based on name, and I think they did give it to the other guy. He lost. I can't remember the name. I remember watching it with a big group of people and thinking, like, Tyson's done. He can't win anymore. Like, it just wasn't there, and that's what I saw from Pacquiao. So, go ahead, Jeff. I know you were texting me a little bit on this. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, based off what I saw on social media, I actually didn't watch the fight, but like the whole time, like I caught a little bit of the fight, but I was basically just like, I wasn't even interested in watching it, which so I didn't even know who Jeff Horn was before this or anything like that, but I saw different celebrities, different athletes, professional athletes tweeting about it, and basically the general impression I got from it was everyone just couldn't believe that Jeff Horn was still lasting with Pacquiao through the fight. If you look at it, like, statistically, only 15% of punches connected. That is horrible. I'm not really sure. That might be one of the lowest percentage of punches landed for, a fight, that the winner was on the, on that end of it. But I don't know. I think you're right. I think Pacquiao at this point, needs to hang the gloves up. There's no way he should have lost to Jeff Horn regardless. But, I think that's one thing that's ruined boxing in the last 20 years. I think at the end of the day, the agenda was they wanted Jeff Horn to win. Pacquiao's going to retire soon probably. And it's like, Mayweather's fighting Conor McGregor. That's his name. That's the next fight for Mayweather, and I think they want Jeff Horn for one last, fight. Because he brought that cane out. I saw that image I saw that little clip on Twitter. As soon as the fight's over, the first thing he does is call out Mayweather. It's like, I don't know. It just seemed all set up. I don't know, conspiracies are with sports and stuff like that. But I feel like for boxing, it was like a huge influence that they wanted Jeff Horn to win. So maybe they get another fight out of Mayweather, because anytime Mayweather fights, it's a huge ticket. I don't like the pay-per-view. It's just, I don't know. I just got really worked up about this. I don't know, Matt, what your opinion is on it.
Well, I did end up watching the fight just because I wanted to see what Pacquiao's condition would be in fighting on basic cable as opposed to having it being a pay-per-view fight. And to be honest, he just looked like he was waiting for that knockout moment. It came. It was like he spaced out his punches, but Horn was so much on the offensive, and Pacquiao didn't have time to really set anything up because it just seemed like the flurry of punches just kept coming and coming and coming. You kept thinking, when's he going to wear out? And it wasn't until around the 6th or 7th round that Pacquiao started picking it up. I think it was like, you could start to see score-wise that Horn was chipping points just by casual watching. You're thinking, there's no way Pacquiao, you could say, based off of percentage of punches landed, that he would win out in the earlier part of the fight. Now, later on, as the fight progressed, I think Horn punched himself a little bit tired. Pacquiao was able to get some points later in the fight that, you could argue either way. But I think Horn definitely ended up winning it because just with the style that he went into it, he looked more aggressive. He landed the punches that I think he did land. Definitely, he got the crowd into it, and I think maybe to a lesser extent, maybe even swayed some of the judges, because as he connects on a punch, the crowd would get into it, being that it was an Australian crowd, and he's an Australian, that they're gonna act much more excited as the local boy, lands a punch, and I think maybe that factored into it as well.
Yeah, I have mixed opinions on that because sometimes when you watch a fight, when I watched Pacquiao versus Mayweather, I felt like the entire fight Mayweather was just dancing around, picking his punches, wasn't exciting at all. But technically, when you look at it, the technique, Mayweather's phenomenal, but I hate watching him box. So I have mixed opinions because I feel like Pacquiao he should have won this fight by, a technical term. So I'm kind of contradicting myself there because I usually hate that, but I don't know if you're just throwing punches, none of them land. I don't know. I just don't think that he should have won based on just throwing a lot of punches, being offensive. But that's just my opinion.
And for the listeners that might not watch a lot of boxing, and this is probably going to suck my explanation for the audio only people, so sorry about that. But they're using a CompuScore, I think is what it's called, where they're only talking about when they're saying landed, it's completely clean punches. So if he's on the complete offensive and he's going after Pacquiao might have his gloves up where it doesn't actually connect or count as a connected punch, but it could still rock him, and it's going to throw him off his game. And if he's in control, that's what you had to look for. And Horn was on the offensive so much that I'm assuming the condensed version I watched was to put Pacquiao in his best light, because it was watch this version. Pacquiao should have won. He got robbed. And that wasn't convincing to me. You could tell that a couple of Horn's punches were getting to Pacquiao. And I think it actually built Horn's confidence up early that he got a couple shots from Pacquiao. Pacquiao was picking his punches. He got a couple in and he wasn't phased. It reminded me of like, what was the one Rocky movie where he just was a Clubber Lang? Was that the guy like Mr. T? Where there's the one part where he loses, I think the first fight, where Rocky just punched him in the face and he's kind of just like laughing. That's kind of what Horn went, and then he went all in. Did he get the knockout? No, but like Matt said, by the later rounds, it was pretty much like the scoring decision was over. Pacquiao would have had to knock him out, and Horn had already taken his best. I mean, once you get so far back, if you're not beating on a guy the whole time, you're not going to knock him out unless you've saved up a later punch, and I just didn't see that. So, tying into the McGregor fight, Mayweather, yeah, maybe boxing doesn't want to be the sideshow, so maybe they had a little bit of the Horn, but Horn being on the offensive, Pacquiao didn't expect that. He was kind of off his game. That threw him. He probably thought it was going to kind of be like when you're going up against a champ, there are a couple ways you can go at it, and being on the offensive usually isn't one of them, because most of the time you're going to leave yourself on guard and you're going to get knocked out, especially someone with Pacquiao's previous power.
Yeah, that's a good point. Looking forward to Mayweather, McGregor. What do you guys think about that? Because I have mixed opinions about it. Because, well, first off, like, I'm a huge fan of UFC, but I don't think that, you know, McGregor has a realistic chance of even coming close to beating Mayweather. Because Mayweather's going to dance around, pick his punches. He's obviously going to be the superior boxer. The only advantage McGregor would have is, you know, he's the best in the world at, you know, being, you know, MMA. But he's not allowed to kick. He's not allowed to submit him. So I think it's just a payday for him, essentially. I don't think he's going to beat Mayweather. The only thing is somehow he miraculously, you know, lands one KO punch, but I don't see Mayweather getting knocked out. I mean, he's undefeated for a reason. I don't think of, you know, of MMA fighter who's, you know, has less technical skill than Mayweather is going to even come close to beating him. I'm not sure what you guys think about that.
I'm really curious just to see, can McGregor get off the UFC side of his brain? You know, as he's getting drilled, is he going to resort to some of those UFC tactics and like go for a takedown or like throw a kick? You know, because for training MMA for so long and having that mindset of throwing kicks, like going for a submission hold, is he going to be able to shut that part of his brain off when, you know, he's only allowed to use his fighting, you know, his stand-up boxing skills? You know, I don't know if he can do it. I know he's a hard trainer. I've seen some of the videos of him putting the work in. It'll be a good fight. I'm going to just go out there and say I think McGregor's going to pull it off just on.
That's a bold statement there.
I know, I'm not laughing at you.
I think he's going to pull it off.
I think someone was bound to knock out Ali. Someone was bound to take down Tyson. You know, Mayweather's had a good run. Let's see what happens.
If, let's say he does, just building off what you said, if McGregor wins, I think that's the nail in the coffin for boxing. It's over. You can't have an undefeated boxer lose to a random guy that's just, I mean, he's a great UFC fighter, but I could be wrong. Is he undefeated in UFC? I don't think he is either, off the top of my head. But whenever you have an undefeated boxer potentially lose to a UFC guy, I mean, yeah, there's a reason this fight has been stretched out so long, and all of those points go in McGregor's favor because he's had time to learn. He's had time. Mayweather pushing this back and coming up with excuses of why he can't box. It's really only going to hurt him if McGregor's going to pull off what would be an unprecedented upset. But
just to add real quick, Conor McGregor's professional career wins and losses is 21 wins, 3 losses, so he's not undefeated. He has 18 TKOs though. He's looks like submissions. He's 1 of 3, so all 3 of his losses were submissions. So you know, I mean, it looks like he got rear naked choked in one of them. You know.
Does it say if he's been actually punched out or kicked out? I guess.
I think all 3 of them were submissions.
His losses, yeah.
It says rear naked choke, rear naked choke, and what is the other one? Arm triangle. So yeah.
Well,
in a knee bar. Excuse me, that one rear naked choke was one of his wins. So he got rear naked choke, arm triangle, and a knee bar for his 3 losses.
all right. Well, that kind of plays good for both of them because I think part of like what hurt Pacquiao is once you get a loss or like once you get knocked out or whatever, if you think of like Tyson when he goes down, you're not the same after that. Like you're going to get frustrated. Think of like Tyson biting the ear, which I think was it the 20th anniversary? It was some anniversary, I swear, just recently. And I love Tyson. I could watch his fights all day. But that's something where you look at it and neither of these guys have been knocked out then in a fight. Who has the advantage? Obviously Mayweather. The only way McGregor wins is if it's a knockout. There's no way the judges will give it to him. I mean, Mayweather's just too good. He's too technical of a fighter. Like you said, Jeff, his fights are annoying to watch. I watched him fight, like I remember like De La Hoya, like it's just annoying to watch him pick and punch, and then it's a whole lot of nothing, which to be honest, I think hurt the sport overall because people like me tune in and I want to see a slugfest. And instead it's kind of just like a choreographed dance, which is not it's not a negative. It's kind of like watching a finesse offense in basketball who just shoots threes like the Golden State Warriors. Can it be successful? Yeah, they're not down low scrapping it out. Or can they win some games? Can you win some fights that way? Yeah, you can win a whole hell of a lot of them. He's undefeated. Now,
I think that whole boxing point with that, like, I think a lot of the glam of boxing has been taken away by the rise of MMA. Now, with some of the financial issues that MMA is coming in, if McGregor can pull this win off, that could be something that could push boxing back into a bigger role, in the future, possibly. Maybe pulling some of those people back across.
Yeah, I'll say with UFC, I've seen a couple cards and they've been disappointed. I think one of the things that hurts them is kind of like the controlled anything goes, where you see a lot of people they wrestle around the whole time. And for a point in McGregor's favor, he hasn't been boxing. The defense is a little different in UFC. Lighter gloves. Now he's using bigger gloves. How is that going to affect his punches? I don't know. Is he going to have a boxer's technique? It might throw Mayweather. I don't know. I don't think he's a southpaw. I could be wrong, but I know that's another thing. Like if going back to like the Rocky, that's a real thing. The timing is different. So is the timing going to be different fighting a UFC guy compared to a boxing guy? That's really, to me, that's really his only chance. And we'll just end on that this week. Any closing thoughts, Matt? We'll start with you.
No, just don't blow your hands and feet and arms off NFL players and high school players. Be smart, be safe, have a good holiday.
Jeff?
Just my final thing is, like you mentioned, this could really be the nail in the coffin for boxing. If Mayweather goes down to McGregor, I think a huge shift will go to MMA. Like, I think both entities, there's a lot riding on for them. Because, if McGregor, gets knocked out early, it's like, all right, well, these UFC fighters, they can't take a punch. And then, the other way around, it's like, all right, maybe the best boxer of all time can't even beat a UFC dude who doesn't even, his specialty isn't even boxing. So I think it's going to be very interesting. I'm very excited for it. I'm going to watch it. I'm going to be a sucker. I'm going to pay for it. But yes, it should be really fun.
Yeah, something's going to happen. It's either going to be a huge boom to one of them. Like one of the leagues is going to take a huge boom and the other one's going to have a hard fall, I think. But that's it. Again, thanks for listening. Tune back in. We'll be doing the live streams. Next week I'm on vacation, so I'm going to try to do the live stream. Look for it. I'll send some tweets out. I don't know, depending on what my internet connection situation's like. Bear with us, fans. That will be pretty much the only week that might be weird. But check us out. There will definitely be a show next week. I'm just not sure about the live streaming. So make sure you subscribe. We're on YouTube. That's where we do the live stream. And most of our stuff's on Twitter. We have a Facebook page and an Instagram. But thanks again, and we'll see you next week.